Hello, I've got a special treat for you about the history of spiritualism. Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. It also goes out on my YouTube channel and as well as the Lilydale Facebook and YouTube channel, and soon to be coming on other platforms as well. And this is year 9 of episodes of Wednesdays with Willa. It's a treasure trove of information regarding spiritualism, mediumship, healing, faith, family, and more. And I love the fact people tell me all the time when they find the show, they start binge watching it, they love it, they feel educated by it and uplifted by it. And I'm so glad. Please like, share, subscribe, follow all the things so that I can keep bringing episodes to you and wonderful guests. And I am so happy to welcome back onto the show my friend Tracy Murphy. Hello, Tracy.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, Tracy is a very special person. She has been the long time caretaker and historian of the Fox property, also known as the Hydesville Memorial Park. And this is a significant piece of spiritualist history, and she has been preserving this, and she knows how to do it. And she's been wonderful to come on the show for several episodes. This is actually part of the Fox family series that we have been doing. We've gone through the family in great detail. So we've had episodes on Kate and Maggie Fox. We've had episodes on their brother David and his instrumental part in all of this, on Leah, the older sister of the girls, and on the parents, John and Margaret Fox. And today we're focused in on the Fox Cottage itself. And it's been an amazing journey to go into
Yeah.
depth into each of these characters and their roles. Tracy, if you could just, for people who might be finding this for the first time, just give them a few minutes to a few minutes of helping them understand a little bit of the history of the Fox family, and then we'll get into the Fox Cottage
Sure.
itself.
Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know, and that would break my heart, the whole thing starts actually in this very small hamlet called Hydesville. And there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Hyde, and he came to practice medicine. But when he came to this area, he found out how rural it was. And so we went with Plan B. And Plan B was actually building a tavern, and he made a lot of money doing that, mostly because of the Erie Canal, I'm sure. And once he started to stockpile his money, he came up with the idea of starting to buy the land surrounding the area. And it was named after this wonderful Dr. Henry Hyde, Hydesville. And he would build these little cottages and he would put them on the properties and people could rent them. And that is what the Fox family did. They came to Hydesville. They wanted to be closer to their son. Margaret and John made that decision and they moved into the Fox Cottage, well, what we call the Fox Cottage, but they moved into the cottage in December of 1847. And one of the first things Mrs. Fox said was, "Oh, place is haunted," which was very eye-opening, I'm sure. And we know that Maggie and Kate, the two young daughters of John and Margaret, they were able to communicate with a spirit that we came to know as Charles B. Rosna, who told his story of being murdered in the home. And the girls were able to communicate with him, as well as going on to several other places and communicating with more spirits. And they were no longer known as little Kate and Maggie. They became known as the Fox sisters, the originators of modern spiritualism in Hydesville. And then, of course, they just became famous mediums.
Yes. Thank you for that synopsis. And it was a pivotal moment in history, in the history of understanding spirit communication. It hit the news, hit the papers real hard, as we've detailed in the other Fox Family series episodes that I would refer you to. And it had a monumental impact. People flooded into that area. The girls were examined thoroughly, and everybody
Yeah,
was kind of put on trial,
unfortunately.
as it were, in the community, but also the world at large. And for those of people who not familiar with where Hydesville, New York is, it's very close to Rochester, New York, which is
Mhm.
central to New York State in the United States. It's not too far from Lake Ontario, so it's as far as positioning, if people are wanting to know the geography of it. And we're going to talk a little bit later about what is still there if people are wanting to visit. But this is significant because on March 31st, 1848, that's considered the very, very special date for the Fox family and for modern spiritualism. And so here we are in the month of March with this episode for all of you, just as a way for you to connect in with this history and feel its significance for yourself. And Tracy's been doing an amazing job of caretaking this, so she's well versed. She's our local expert, so to speak, about these things.
I
And
try.
where should we go with this next, Tracy? What would you like to say next in this story?
Well, I think we should probably talk about the cottage because I feel like without the cottage, we probably wouldn't be here.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Would you like me to put up a picture
Oh,
at
that
this
would be
point?
great.
Okay,
Yes.
let me get the picture set while you start talking.
Okay. So I think one of the most interesting things to me, and I was telling Willa earlier, there are a lot of people, especially in my area of Newark, where Hydesville has kind of been taken over by, that will come up to me and say, I remember the original cottage. And unless they are about 175 years old, they do not remember the original cottage. What they remember is a replica cottage. And it's a very interesting story. The replica cottage was just a wonderful little home, very humble. It's often described as, it was built in 1814 and it was built by Henry Hyde and his family on the property where modern spiritualism originated. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is it was a very humble home. It was what they called a story and a half. So there was a large first floor. There was a family sitting area with a wood stove. There was a small pantry towards the back of the house. On the south side of the house would have been another small sitting room where the Foxes actually turned that into a small bedroom. And then there was a staircase that went up, and into the loft area is where there was a bedroom for the girls. And that's where Maggie and Kate would stay, was upstairs on that second floor. Um, Not a lot of room to run around, but big enough for a family of four. And there was what we would consider now as a full basement, and they had it sectioned into two parts. And there would have been, an area for their cold storage or maybe some, putting in some extra. If they had to store furniture or anything, it was quite a basement. Of course, it would have been all dirt floor, um, but very humble. There were a few windows. There was a nice big front door. There was a well in the front. The outhouse, of course, was in the back. But just very, very humble beginnings.
Right. And it's in a rural section, a country
Very,
section.
yes.
So
Very,
it would have just had some property around it, and it would have been cold and bleak, I imagine, at that
look
time of
out
year.
your window today.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
cold and
Yeah.
bleak.
Well, you let me know when you want me to hit the next picture. Or
Okay. You can go to the next one if you want. So inside, what you will see today is actually the original foundation from 1814. And not a lot has changed. There is one section that goes to the north. That is a section that we later learned was not a part of the original. But I can get into that a little later because I'll tell you who actually put that on. But you can see a lot of the stones are like field stones. So they would literally come from outside. People would be walking around and grabbing these stones to make these foundations. Um, the door was positioned in the front, which would have been facing the south. Not as we're close to the road, but of course there wouldn't have been a road there back in 1815, so it's a little different. I think we have a do we have another one.
sure, should I click? All right. So this is what if you were to go inside right now, there is a structure that has been built around this foundation to preserve it further for the history of spiritualism. And this is only accessible at certain parts of the year. And Tracy is the caretaker of this property. But this is what it would look like inside. And she's got some little explanation pieces in there, and she does tours in there in the nice time of the year. So
Yeah, I
just so
think the
everybody's
table
aware.
has donuts and coffee. I don't have that all year round.
That's right.
Just a little disclaimer there.
Right.
This was probably from the March 31st opening from last year because there was no snow on the ground. We got lucky.
We got lucky. Yes, we did. All
Mhm.
right. So this is the next picture of the view of the
Yeah.
interior
Yeah, so
of the
this is
building.
another view. This is actually, you enter from the north, which is the back. I feel like it's the back of the house. But you would enter through here. There's a door, and then you enter. You can see the windows that go all the way around. I believe there's 11 of them. So even if I'm not there, people can get a really good sense of what the enclosure is protecting, which is the original foundation. You're able to see a full view. Um, a lot of people are going to wonder, is that the cistern on the left-hand side? Well, it is not. If you know your spiritualist history and you've heard me talk about the Fox sisters before, you will know that they did find the peddler's bones. And that was in 1904. And that section on the left is where they found his bones. There were some kids playing in there, and one of the kids fell into the foundation, and it opened up, and out spilled the peddler's tin pack, which is in Lilydale, and his bones, unfortunately.
And
Well,
that was decades
fortunately,
after the sensation of
exactly.
1848.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And many, many years after the Fox sisters had passed as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So shall I proceed?
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
And there it is. That's a nice little view. People come from all over the world to catch a glimpse of just this particular area. And I love it when people come in and they're like, "Can you show me where the peddler was?" And I always say, I'm going to give you a minute because I think you can figure it out. Um, Obviously, when this would have been found back in the early 1900s, it would not have been filled. This is filled pretty much to protect that space. And then, of course, the inside of the enclosure, the other parts that you see, That is probably about 4 to 6 feet of fill dirt.
Mm,
So back in 1998, when they first started, we called this the Hydesville Memorial Park project. And we were trying to resurrect the original foundation. This is what they would have seen, but at ground level. When I would go there, there were huge pieces of slate that covered this whole section. And if you didn't know, it was just a really rundown, overgrown area. A lot of people would just kind of go there and walk around, and, they probably had a sense of, oh, this is where the spook house was, and, because it has a lot of lore. But for those of us who did know what the property held, we knew that this is where the house was, but it was really hard to find it because it was so overgrown. So when I think it's confusing for people when they first step in because they think, oh, this is it. It was so tiny. But then I tell them, sit down. And then where your head is where the floor of the house began. So I think that makes more sense. But there's a lot of fill dirt in there and field stones.
and actually, I think that does make sense. Having visited Pompeii, I know that one of the things that they've realized in their excavation, that over time, this actually destroys the site to
It
have it
does.
exposed.
Yep.
So it makes sense that this would get filled in. And just to orient people, that that special interior wall would have been built to hide the remains of the peddler.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
that is there. Just
Yeah.
to really spell
Right.
this out for everybody. And
Yeah.
it's very Edgar Allan Poe.
It is very, yes. So when you actually step into the foundation area, if you think back to 1848 or 1847, and you went into the basement, you would just see the stones, and you would think, oh, well, this is a very small basement. But there was actually an extra 2 feet. And unless you're an architect or really smart when you walked outside, you wouldn't realize it. And they say that the assailant of the peddler was instructed to bring in fieldstone. And that's what he did. And this is what they call the false wall or the fourth wall, because it literally, if you can imagine a small body in that little groove, it's almost like a little canal, and then being bricked in. That is essentially what happened. And I think I had been the caretaker for probably 20 some years, and one day I was sitting in there and I thought, boy, the peddler said that his throat had been slit, and how horrible is that, and I like to think that it was an instant, non not too terrifying a death. But then, I sat down and I got thinking, like, my gosh, rapping noises. It's almost like someone taking a stone and hitting another stone. And then I thought, my gosh, that's a horrible thought. And it just really changed my whole thinking. And how does someone, how does someone do that? And then continue to live upstairs for a little bit, I think, until the peddler got his bearings on the other side and was like, all right, now you're in trouble. I'm coming back and somebody's gonna listen to me. So
Mhm.
yeah, it
So
was a strange thought.
it's a strange thought that anybody would do this. And so just to be clear, the foundation was put in 1814.
Correct.
Then the murder of the peddler would have happened what year?
We believe about 1845, 46.
Right. And so then by, in 2+ years,
Mm-hmm.
the Fox family come to live there.
Yes. Yeah.
And so,
There was
yeah, the
one family before that. Well, there was the Bell family,
Bell family, that's right.
and that is who the peddler accused of murdering him,
Mhm.
was Mr. Bell, although no charges were ever brought. So if you're a ancestor of the Bell family, I'm sorry. Um, and then we know the Weekman family was there, but they weren't there very long. He was kind of a no nonsense kind of guy. And when they heard the knockings and his children complained of cold hands and footsteps, he was, let's go, we're out.
Mhm.
So when the
Mhm.
Fox family came, it was December of 1847. And it just, right away started up.
And you
Almost
probably get
peddling there.
questions from visitors as to why it took so long for the discovery of the actual false wall and bones.
Well, one of the things I think was once the Fox sisters left, we know that their father stayed. They went to live with their older sister, Leah, and Mrs. Fox, but Mr. Fox stayed. We know that.
Right.
He built his home near David. And I think it kind of became a bit of an attraction, but
Yes.
then also a little bit of a curse to the Hyde family because, well, now people have seen Hydesville was, people were going to Hydesville to see the spook house, but no one wanted to rent it anymore. So it was kind of that double-edged sword where curiosity got the best of people, but not enough where they wanted to rent the house.
Mhm.
Um, Today paranormal investigators are always calling
Yeah,
and,
they'd be
oh, can
all
we,
over this thing. Yeah.
yeah, right. Like, can we investigate? Can we do this? So I think, for a while it was just, oh, this is something interesting. And then, it just, the novelty wears off
Mhm.
and times change and, spiritualism became huge. So this was just like, oh, yep, that's where it started. So when you had younger kids playing in it, first thing you're going to do is go to the basement. And it wasn't until that happened that, they did find the bones. And then, of course, as soon as the bones were discovered, they were quickly taken away and, examined by the sheriff's department and coroner. So, yeah, and then it still, for another 10 years, just sat there
Mhm.
until it was purchased by Benjamin Bartlett, and he purchased the property. I believe he tried to purchase the property and the house. The family of Dr. Hyde said no, and so he purchased just the cottage. And he showed up at the property. He had them take down the house. They literally took it apart. Windows were stacked and doors were taken down, and the whole place was taken board by board. They put it on a barge. It was taken by Erie Canal all the way to Buffalo, and then from Buffalo, it was put on trucks and then taken to Lilydale.
And what
And
year was that?
that was 1916. 1916, which, oh my gosh, this year is 2026. We've got a little anniversary going on.
We do have an
My
anniversary going
goodness.
on. Would you like me to click to
Yeah,
the next photo now?
sure, yeah.
All right.
And there we have it. So Benjamin Bartlett, he was a spiritualist, and he was the one who, he purchased the cottage and he had it moved to Lilydale, and he literally had it put back together. So you could say it was restored. Um, and that is where Flo Cottrell was in charge, and it looks so sweet. Just, like a very nice place to live, honestly. Um, and it was in Lilydale for quite a while. And then unfortunately, we know there was a fire and the cottage pretty much burned. Not much was left, which is really sad.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Mm. I think we do have that. Do we have a slide of the
I think so. I'll click and see what the next. There we go.
Okay, yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Yep. And that was the front page of the Fredonia Times, September 22nd, 1955. Um, yeah, that's basically all that remained. But fortunately, they were able to save the Fox family Bible and the tin pack. So that was a good thing. So those things can be found um, in the museum,
Mm.
which is great.
The
I
Lilydale
think,
Museum, which is very close to where the Fox Cottage
yeah,
was placed in Lilydale, so it's not too
yeah.
far.
And then today it's the Memorial Garden, the Fox
Mhm.
Family Memorial Garden.
True.
Yeah. And then this house, looks very familiar, doesn't it? This is the replica cottage. And when I'm looking at photos, a lot of people will say, how do you know it's the replica? Well, if you look at the top, you'll see lightning rods. And I'm pretty sure the original cottage did not have lightning rods. Also, the big tree in front is missing. And there is two monuments in the front of the house. Now, there was a gentleman by the name of John Drummond, and Mr. Drummond showed up to the Fox property and he looked around. There was no house. And he said, geez, this looks like a nice place to live. And so he went out and he found period time boards and windows and glass, the doors, everything was pretty authentic, minus the lightning rods. He actually built this replica and he lived in it, which was just wonderful if you lived in Newark or Arcadia or Wayne County, actually, because he was a pretty cool guy. Um, they say that, he was a very small man. He was not very tall. If I had to guess, I'd say he was about 5'2". And they say that he was able to mix mortar in one hand and carry a boulder in the other to put them together. Um, he was very consistent in his clothing. He always wore khaki pants and a white t-shirt, and sometimes he had a big hat on. So he was very recognizable when people would come. He was a Canadian citizen, so he did gain American citizenship when he came, and his wife Edith, she died before him, and he actually had her brought to the property, and she's buried on the property. He was a very smart man. What he wanted a Lilydale,
Mm.
and he started his own spiritualist church and community. It didn't just encompass the Fox property, he took over other properties. And yeah, there he is peeking out the window. That is him. And that is how you would see him. Sometimes I've had people call me and say, there's a very strange man inside the enclosure. And I'm like, white hair? Yep. Oh, that's Mr. Drummond. No big deal. He is very much present
So
at
he
the
would have built
property.
the replica. What year again was that?
He built it, it would have been late 50s, early 60s.
Hmm. And then
Yep.
as far as this photo of him represented in the window, when was that have taken place?
This probably would have been taken right before the fire.
Okay.
And there's that four-letter word again, the
Yeah.
fire. And that's basically what happened. He was living in the home, and he put some wood into the wood stove. A spark caught fire on the outside, and he tried to put it out. Unfortunately, there was a lot of smoke and water damage. He was burned pretty bad.
Mm.
And he was like 86 at the time, 86 years old. And they were putting him in the ambulance, and he said, don't worry, I'll be back. He said, I'll be back. I'm going to rebuild. He had a lot of knowledge about just about every religion that was out there. And it wasn't just the Fox sisters and spiritualism. He would talk about just about anything. He kept diaries. He was just a really quirky man, but so intelligent. He knew a lot. And he said that one of the reasons for building on the property, not just because it was the Fox property, but he believed the ley lines were there. And, he had this sense about him. He was the kind of guy that you either wanted to stay away from or you wanted to get really close to. He was very
And what
interesting.
year did that replica house fire happen?
That would have been about 1988. Yeah. And they say that it was the darkest smoke that
Mm.
anybody had ever seen. It was pretty bad. He did go to the hospital. He was there for quite a while. And then he he never came back. He never came back to the property. It was just too much. So the property just sat there. The house was not in bad shape at all. I mean, there was smoke damage, there was water damage. Um, my memory of going by the house were the white curtains that he had in the upstairs windows, and one of the windows was broken. And on a very windy day, you would see these tattered white curtains come out of the window and then suck back in. So, people would drive by and go, oh, I think I saw something. But, like it it was a place like my girlfriend Tracy and I, we would we would go there. There was so much to learn. And, like I said, Mr. Drummond was kind of in a nice way, a hoarder. And I think it's just the way his brain worked because he wanted to obtain as much information about anything that he could. So there were a lot of books and papers, and he had written letters to Ronald and Nancy Reagan, inviting them for tea to come and learn about the property and spiritualism, and he had some ideas of what should be happening out there. And there was a spiritualist community. And unfortunately for the community, they were on the adjoining property. They had a fire in 1955. So fire is not our friends out in Hydesville by
Mm.
any means. And there are a lot of times if I see somebody that has an open flame or, even a cigarette, and I'm just like, not here. I'm not taking the chance. We love battery operated candles. That's about it. Um, but yeah, it's just, he was so fascinating. And my girlfriend and I, like in 86 and 87, we would, go out and just try to get as much information as we could. And then unfortunately, there was a time in Wayne County, which coincidentally is known as the burned over district, and it had nothing to do with fire. Um, but it's very interesting to me that the village and the town stepped in and they said, oh, the place is an eyesore. We're worried somebody's going to get hurt, so we're going to authorize a controlled burn. Now, at the time, there was a family that lived across the road, and they were pretty sure that Mr. Drummond had given them the property. Um, and we would later find out that he did not, because Mr. Drummond did not own the property. He didn't own anything. He didn't pay the taxes on the property or anything like that. He basically came and squatted and lived. And I've never been so proud of a squatter in all my life because if he hadn't done that, gosh, we don't even know what would have happened to the property because on the very north end of the property, it was actually a junkyard.
Mm.
It's really sad, but it was a junkyard. And we have found like Model T hubcaps and things like that. And there's newspaper articles that say, once the Mecca of spiritualism and now a junkyard, and, what a shame it was. So when they decided and allowed the controlled burn, I'm not gonna lie, and hopefully this never comes back to bite me in the butt. Uh, my girlfriend and I, we took some stuff. We went in there and we took some papers and books, and because we were just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Like they're going to tear down this building. Um, Unfortunately, we didn't hide them in the right spaces. Um, because it's horrible. I'm telling you.
Confessions,
We
my
tried to,
goodness.
I know, right? Here, I'm diving into the past. I'm going to be in jail by the end of the day. Um, but we would take, we took some of those books and the information that we thought was important, and we put them in the schoolhouse, which is up the road. Um, Mr. Drummond was also renovating the schoolhouse that he did not own, but he wanted to put apartments in there. Oh my gosh, this man, he was great. So we hid some things in there, and then I hid some things in my home. Um, but when we left the house, I didn't even think about it until, maybe 10 years ago, somebody was doing renovations. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you find some things behind the chimney in this area, let me know. And they didn't. So we don't know what happened because they're
So
gone.
you took stuff, hid it, and then forgot you hid it?
Yeah. Yep. That's my brain. Mm,
Wow, it's like a
yeah.
time capsule.
Well, and I'm hoping, who knows, maybe in 20 years. They've already renovated the church. I don't believe anything was of use there. If there was anything, it would have probably been disintegrated because it in the elements, and
Sure.
the church was in pretty rough shape, so, or the
So
schoolhouse.
how old were you when you met Mr. Drummond then
I
and
was
started
probably
talking?
like 14, I think. I
Wow.
was young. I was
Yeah.
really, yeah, I was young.
And you and your friend
But
would just get talking with him and
oh, you could pull up. Like my girlfriend's mom would drop us off. Sometimes we would call her in like in the mid morning from school, and we would say, "Oh, we don't really want to be in school today. Could you just like take us to the property?"
so
And she would say,
you'd play hooky
"Sure."
and go.
To the Fox. I know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
My goodness.
we
You
were brave
I
women
guess
back then.
so.
But yeah, and we would just go there. And it was funny because I think like the first time we ever went there, we were so scared to go in the basement. But if he was like before social media, before, hardcore advertising, like he made his own brochures, which is fantastic. And I'm lucky that I have a couple copies of, the original brochures that he made. But he had this gigantic arrow that was lit up with Christmas lights, and it would blink. And he would say, "Do you want to see where the peddler's buried?" And the sign would blink. And so you knew if you followed the arrow down, it led to the false wall, and that's where the peddler was. Um, but the first time we were like, I looked at my friend and I was like, I can't even put a step down. Like, what's wrong? This is weird.
Your knees
Um,
were knocking with
so
fear. Yeah.
yeah, it was just, but and I always say this today, and it goes way back to this time in the 80s. The minute I was there, no matter how bad it looked, I mean, it was so overgrown. No matter when we were there, it has always felt home, comfortable, like peaceful. And we weren't scared. We weren't scared of him because he was just this quirky little guy. And yeah, things were different in the 80s. We weren't afraid of people. And, like you had your intuition, and, you were street smart and things like that. But um, it's always been that way for me. And I don't think anybody could have said to 14, 15-year-old Tracy, like, someday you're going to be out here and you're going to be pushing for these women and, in
Right.
this property to have a voice. Because I would have been like, yeah, right, okay. Um, but I'm glad that, the universe worked it out because I wouldn't have it any other way. I absolutely love this property with every part of my being. Absolutely love it.
That's amazing. What an amazing story. I
Yeah,
love
it's
this.
crazy. It is crazy. And then sadly, they did do the controlled burn. I think that was around 1990. And that was horrible. That was just horrible to watch.
Oh,
Um,
so you went
and
that day and
mhm,
watched it
yep,
happen.
yeah,
Wow.
yep. There were a lot of people that came out, a lot of people.
But
And
what
then
would the alternative have been if they didn't do the controlled burn? What would have been the alternative? Is
I
the
think the
question I
alternative would have been just leave the property as it was. Because honestly, nobody was going there. Like we were. Maybe, I think people were afraid, because it was still, even in the 1900s, it was known as the spook house.
Mm.
People would talk about it, and Hydesville used to be a really happening place. There was a store, there was like an egg farm, and it was a nice little hamlet. But then it just, people fade away and pass on, and buildings fall, and nobody
So
wanted to do
had the
anything.
building become a hazard?
I From my point of view, I didn't think it was. We
You're
were
like,
going
I'll go in a
inside.
sinking ship, no problem.
Right? I mean, there weren't any holes in the floors. There was no holes in the
Okay.
ceiling, the roof. So
Hmm.
I don't, but then again, that was from my eyes.
Sure.
So there could have been. I just didn't see it. I did not see it.
So
Um,
after the controlled burn happened, what was the next step?
so after that, they pretty much bulldozed everything. They kind of filled in the entire basement. So the original foundation was left. Everything got bulldozed
Oh,
in.
so that's when that got filled in at that
Yes.
point. Mhm.
Yep. And
Which is actually
basically
a good thing.
it was, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think that's like the customary thing to do. You just like bulldoze everything into the basement and then you leave it. And it was so overgrown. I mean, it was
So
just
this was so
crazy.
the peddler, I just want to make sure we're all clear on this timeline then. So the peddler was discovered and the bones removed and
Yep.
he lived there and then Mr. Drummond lived there
Yep.
and then the control burn happened. They fill it in and but is this before or after there was the little scuffle of whose property it is?
This was before.
This is before the
This
scuffle.
is
Okay.
before.
All
Yep.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So it kind of goes back to that family that lived across the road because
Right.
they said, yeah, go ahead. We give you permission to burn it down. So they did. And then the property just sat there. But the National Association of Spiritualist Churches came down, and I'm not sure how I was not involved in any of that, but I know that they came down and said, like, this property belongs to us. It's a spiritualist property. And then they kind of went back and forth with this family, and they're like, no, he gave it to us. There was a will. I don't know if there was a will, but the loophole, I believe, was one, he did not own it. Two, he didn't pay taxes. And three, he couldn't have given it away because of one and two. Um, so I think, they had to go to court and they had to prove it. But the thing that he did that saved it was making it spiritualist property. And because his wife was buried on the property and his request was to be buried on the property, it
Mhm.
also made it hallowed ground.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's how it all kind of came back into the spiritualist to Nationals Church, NSAC, which is fantastic. Again, you ask the universe, they deliver. Um, you have to be very specific. But yeah, and then there was no fight after that. And I believe that was around 98 when the NSAC was able to officially say this is our property. And then the plans went out, and they were trying to figure out what do we want to do, and that's when they realized the original foundation was still there. And there were a few monuments. There was a monument put there by Mrs. Cadwallader, which is a beautiful monument.
Yeah, she's the one that gave the money to build the Andrew Jackson Davis Lyceum in
Yes,
Lilydale.
yeah,
Mhm.
yep, beautiful
1928,
woman.
I want to say though. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the date was.
Okay.
Yeah, my one of my very good friends lives in her home. So
Oh, nice.
we're hoping one day we're gonna, maybe talk to her. We don't know. Um, I would love to.
Sure.
But yeah, so there's a monument there that she gave the money for. There's another monument that was given by the um the spiritualist community that was for the property that was on the other property. And I cannot for the life of me think of their name off the top of my head, which is horrible. Um, but I did just come back from vacation, so sorry. I can get the name. It'll come to me. But so those monuments were there. And Mr. Drummond, like I said, he wanted his own Lilydale, and he was going to build a church. So he had started building a church. And it was probably maybe 200 concrete blocks. They were just, piled and mortared, and he was starting it. And this one particular monument was on top of it because that was going to be the cornerstone of the church. Yeah, he had big plans. And if we had crowdfunding and Facebook and all those things, he would have been an amazing guy. He would have really done big things. But around, I think it was around 2000, one of the monuments was taken off the property and it was stored at a local monument company called Newark Granite Works. My husband and his two brothers owned Newark Granite Works. So I don't know if it was Reverend Cozy Allen that had called, or I'm not sure of who the top people were. But they had called and said, we have this monument out here. We want to put it in storage until we can figure out what we're going to do. And my husband said, yeah, sure, we'll go get it and, store it for you. Not a problem. And so I remember going out there, and it was like 10 feet in the air. And we had to, there was snow up to our waist. We had to get it off. They put it on a sled and they pulled it to the truck and then took it to the Granite Works. And it was there for a while. And then they started to come in, and they were clearing the property. And it was just like, this is interesting. I wonder what's happening. And so very slowly, the property became visible again. And that's when they exposed the original foundation. And I think the idea was, oh my gosh, this is very important to our history, and let's protect it. And then they started to build the enclosure. Somewhere in there, Cozy had said to my husband, this is what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be looking for somebody that might want to mow, maybe take care of the property. Would be nice if they're local or whatever. And my husband said, oh, do I have the right person for you? And he came home and he was like, oh, by the way. And I was like, give me the number. Like right now, I need to talk to
But
this
he was all
person.
casual with it, even
Yeah,
though
he's
he
like,
knew you'd
ah,
be.
I thought maybe you'd be interested. And I was just like, oh my gosh, am I interested? Um, yeah, so I started. The first year I mowed dirt. I literally mowed dirt. It was so gross, but I was so happy to do it. And then I would jump in the creek because there's a creek that runs the property. And I would jump in the creek and I would wash off and I would ride my mower home and then I would take a shower. And it was great. And then the next year the grass was taller and thicker and fuller and like you could see the vision. You could see the big picture. And then they started to do the enclosure. Um, that was tough for me. They started to do the excavating of the original foundation. And that is where they found this little walkway. Um, it was an extra entrance to the basement, and that was done by Mr. Drummond.
Mhm.
And nobody knew. I mean, because it looked like it had always been there, but they kind of had to go back to the drawing board and I think they had to add a little extra to the building. Otherwise, I think the building would have been a little smaller.
Mhm.
Um, but man, in hindsight, I wish I had been there because I would have been like, please build a replica of the replica or, build a replica of the original. And, it could have been like, a beautiful library or a resource area. But I'm happy that the original foundation is protected. And, the guys would take lunch breaks and I would be down there like, let's go. Come on. You got this is all open now. It's exposed. And it worried me because,
Yeah.
people that don't understand can do things. And, I didn't want that happening. Um, but they were great and they got the building up and then the windows went up and then the door was on and it was like, oh, thank goodness, because I felt more protected. It was now protected, insulated, nobody was getting to it. Um, and I just felt better about it. But yeah, and then I would just go and mow and hang out and it was crazy and then the word started getting out and more people were coming and they were like, oh, tell us about this place, and I was like, oh, okay. um so yeah, and then I don't remember when I turned 40. It was a while ago, but I was like, oh, I'm 40. I'm so old. I have to join the historical society. And I did. I joined the Newark Arcadia Historical Society. Chris Davis is their director. He's fantastic. And I joined, and a couple of years into it, they were able to get grants for 5 historical markers. And they were like, let's pick 5 spots. And I was like, Five
You're like,
Sisters? Mhm. And they were like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And it was difficult, but we did it and it was great. And we got all 5 markers, which was fantastic. And I remember we got the one marker, I think it was like early October. And they're like, oh, we got them and, we'll set them in the spring. And I was like, no, like, can't we do it now? Like, I'll go dig and, whatever we got to do. And the board president, Dave Stiles, at the time was like, okay, we'll go do it. So he was fantastic. He put the sign in for me and, and I don't think they understand when I say to them, like, you don't know how much this means to me. And if it means this much to me, and I've only been doing it for this long, it's got to mean something to somebody else. And I was very appreciative of him coming and doing it. And it was cold and not the best conditions, but having that sign up there to me was like, saying to the world, they were here, this happened, they're important. And and that's all I ever want people to take away. um I'm not saying you got to come to the property and get baptized in the creek to be a spiritualist. I'm not saying that, but
No,
come and
boy.
learn,
Yeah.
right? Keep an open mind. Um, and take away that they were two young girls, became these famous mediums, and maybe not so much by their choice, but by the universe's design. And they were real. They, they deserve to be recognized. And I love them. So you have to love them too. No, I'm just kidding. But
I just feel so grateful that uh, you know, in all of this, you have had such amazing love for the history and the preservation of it. And to be the caretaker of that property is not an easy thing.
yeah,
And and to fight for it all of these years, we're talking decades
yeah, yeah,
that you have tried to hold the line and keep the
yeah,
history strong and to share it with
absolutely.
people with enthusiasm. Your
Hmm. Yep.
enthusiasm, it always comes through every single episode. I hope
Yeah.
people write in the comments how much they love that.
Me too. It just
There's your mission,
feels
should you choose to accept it, people who are watching this and listening to this.
it's interesting. And one of the things that everybody always says, like, oh, you do way too much. Like, you have to delegate. You have to, allow people to help you. And when I was going through like my breast cancer era, it wasn't an era, but it was a time. Um, like one of the things I was doing chemo, and then I had to do radiation for like every day for like 12 to 16 weeks. And it was very difficult to get there and do things. And, my brother-in-law, Rob, was like, let me mow for you, let me go down, and just do this for you. And, that one time, and I'm like, okay. But it's so hard. I mean, my husband will tell you there were a few times he would sneak down and do it. And then I would be like, I'm going to go mow. And he's like, oh, I already did it. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you did it? Like, I would be angry because I'm like, that's my time. That's my time to be there. But and I have people that reach out and they're like, oh, what do you need? What can we do? Can we plant flowers for you and things like that? And, over the years, I've learned to say yes. Because in my head, I'm like, well, you can't come down here and take this over. Like, this belongs to everybody. And, it's me. I'm the mama bear down. I'm the mama fox down there. Because I always want things to just go smooth. And I remember way back in the beginning, they sometimes there was a local church that they had written cozy and asked for permission to have a service on a Sunday, and she forgot to tell me. So I'm driving home from church and I see all these people out there, and I'm like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
I pull in and I'm like, I'm sorry, do you have permission to be? And they're like, yeah, we asked Cozy Ellen and she said yes. And I'm like, okay. And I would get in my car and I'm Cozy. And she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you. And I'm like, okay, whew.
You can't do that to the caretaker.
I was ready to be
Take
like,
your
all right,
duties
all you people
seriously.
out. Yeah, but now I'm like, I am so happy. Sometimes I drive by and I see, people just sitting on the benches, and it's nice. And local people will come and they'll have lunch there, or they meet other people there. And sometimes I will get, if I have a random day off and somebody sends me a message and says, I'm here at the property, any chance you could come? And I used to be like, yeah, I'm going to drop whatever I'm doing and I'll get there, which has gotten harder over the years for me to do it. But, if I'm just at the house, I'm like, yeah, I'm 5 minutes away. I can stop in. And it ends up being about 2 hours, but I don't care because that's more people now who have learned the history, and what hopefully they take away, a little bit of the story, and a little appreciation of how hard it was for them to do what they did. So
And it's
I
as you're
hope you get
talking,
that
it's
email.
reminding me of this one movie, Night at the Museum, that
Yeah.
with Ben Stiller, and the museum comes alive in the at night, and there he becomes so interested in all of it unfolding, and he becomes quite the caretaker and the guardian of
Yeah.
that space. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's what's happened for you, that you're having a different kind of immersive experience than most people would.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
you're
definitely.
trusted in that space. You love that space. It's, the people that have the energy that's been laid down there before, you're so cognizant of and have a spiritual link with. That's very, very special. I love
And
that, that
I
someone
want
like you was
people to
there.
come and respect, just respect the history and respect the property and which I think, not just for spiritualism, but for any kind
Sure.
of a religion or, a movement or whatever you want to, put a label on it. But yeah, just, a respect for our common people.
Well, I know
It
we
seems
should wrap things up. Any last things you'd like to share with folks before we talk to them about the event that's being planned for this year's um, celebration, if you will, the
yeah.
birth of spiritualism?
Oh, our
Do you
big
have any other things you
celebration.
want to share about that we didn't get a chance to cover about the Fox Cottage? I
I
think you
think
did.
we pretty much got
I think
everything.
so.
I
So, what's
mean,
the special event that is coming up at the end
so
of this month, March
March
31st is our
31st, yes. March 31st is the day that we celebrate modern spiritualism. If it's on a Saturday or Sunday, usually we'll be there all day on the property on the 31st. However, this year, I believe it's the 29th. I had to look at my
So
calendar.
that'll be a Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sunday, March 29th, if you follow our Facebook page, it'll be posted on there. But I'm at the property around 11 a.m. and I usually stay till about 4, sometimes 6, depending on, the traffic and the weather. But that is the official start date for our season when the enclosure is open, when the property reopens. Right now we do still have a ton of snow, but
Yeah, we get such snow in New York State
yeah,
and
yeah.
central
And
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 west.
our visitors kind of die down in the winter. And I used to go and I used to shovel it and all of that stuff, but it just unfortunately it's kind of hard to shovel 2 feet of snow for one person that may show up in, January, February.
And there's no
So
heat to this enclosure. There's nothing like
no
that
heat.
that's
Yeah,
available. But on the
yeah,
29th
yeah,
of 2026,
yes.
in March, people can come and you'll show them the enclosure and explain about the
Give that
history
history.
of the
Mhm.
Fox family. And so that's a nice little start off
Yeah.
to it. And then if people are in the good months, good weather months is what I mean,
Mm,
want to reach out, I'll make sure that it's posted there, your contact information, so that they
perfect.
can reach out to you directly to make an appointment. It's always best to give Tracy some uh, advanced information that you're coming, because then she can be there. She can, she has a life. She doesn't just serve as the caretaker of this Fox Cottage property, but she's also the director of Historic Palmyra, which is like I think
Museums, yes.
five museums that
Yes.
she's involved with. Plus, she has a family, so she has a life. So, whenever she comes on the show, I try to remind people
A
of
little
that
bit of
fact.
notice goes a long
Like,
way.
you know, and make an appointment, and she'll be happy, as you can tell, to show you around and give you the information that you need. Anything else you want them to know about that before we close out for the day?
No, I know my information is at the property. So there's a little card with instructions. If you text the word tour to the number that's down there, it goes directly to me. Um, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to get right to you. I usually try to text back as quick as I can. And, I have this little thing blurb that says, thank you for your interest. Let's schedule a time. And I understand sometimes people are from out of state and they just happen upon the property. And, if, like I said, if I have a day off and I'm not doing anything, I'm happy to pop down. But it is best to get a hold of me and try to schedule an appointment. So,
Absolutely. Well, this is so valuable what you're doing, and we really appreciate it. And I have a few announcements myself for those of you who are interested in developing your mediumship. I have a new round of my mediumship development circle series that will be starting on April 6th. And that's the Spring Circle series for those of you who are interested in learning how to give and receive messages from Spirit with partners. And I have a different lesson every week that we cover. And also a mini reading mastery class that is an immersion, a mediumship immersion program, and lots of other classes that you can enjoy. So please go ahead and visit my website, willawhite.com. You can look at the online classes page and get registered to join us for those live classes. I also have video classes available for instant viewing on that page as well. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. We really appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been wonderful, as usual, to be able to continue this very special Fox family series. And the cottage has definitely been a big character.
yes, I would say yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Tune in next week for another great show.